All right, so let's get the meeting started with Chris and the sky this month.
Thank you, Paul, and hello, everyone, from beautiful downtown smoky Thornhill, Ontario, which is just north of the Toronto city limits. And I'm going to cover the events of the sky from tonight into a month hence on July 5th, the date of our next Recreational Astronomy Night meeting. So let's get started here. So first up, I've got a bit of news in space exploration. Launches have become so commonplace nowadays. I think Andy mentioned the same thing last month when he did the sky this month. But I did pick out a few notables to take a look at. First up, sometimes in the near future, we've got a launch of the Peregrine commercial lunar lander for a company called Astrobotic. It's going to do a 40-day period of Earth orbiting and then cruise to the moon. After a bit of orbiting of the moon, it's going to land near the Groothuizen domes in Sinus Viscatatus, which is the Bay of Stickiness. And then it'll operate for about 192 hours. Now, the Bay of Stickiness was a new one to me, so I thought I'd take a look at where that is on the moon, and I'll just pull this up. A little embayment here to the south of Sinus Iridum on the edge of Mare Imbrium. And, you know, the main features on the moon are named after, you know, weather systems and moods of humans and so on. So I'm going to assume that what they really mean is the Bay of Mugginess, like sticky in terms of mugginess. All right, what else have we got? Also, sometime in July, we've got a SpaceX Falcon Heavy launch from Kennedy Space Center of an unspecified military payload. And then a biggie, around July 21st, we've got an Atlas V rocket from Cape Canaveral, Florida, with Boeing's Starliner, the first crewed test flight to the ISS. And last up, a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket from Cape Canaveral, Florida, is going to launch something called the Euclid mission. That's going to cruise to the Sun-Earth L2 Lagrange point. And its purpose is to make a 3D map of the universe by observing billions of galaxies out to 10 billion light years away across a swath of more than a third of the sky. So that's one to keep an eye out for as well. All right, let's get into some observing. It's a neat picture here from Bill Longo of star trails and fireflies. So if you're interested in contributing to the monitoring of light pollution in the night sky, as many of us are, then you can participate in the Globe at Night program, which allows you to every month, there's an observing program where they select a particular constellation or two for you to head outside and look up at and just measure or gauge how many of the stars you're able to see from your location and then submit your observations. So the next campaign is from June 9th to 18th. So we're coming up on that one, and it'll be focusing on the constellation of Boötes and Hercules. Now we're at that time of the year where the sky is getting dark later and later. The days are long, the nights are short. This graph at the top of my screen here is giving you the yearly balance between nighttime in the bottom half and daytime in the top half. And you can see where we are at the red line. So tonight we had sunrise. Today we had sunrise at 5:30 in the morning and sunset at 8:56 for a total of 15 hours and 20 minutes of daylight. And since our next meeting is going to sort of fall on the opposite side of the summer June solstice, which is coming up on June 21st in the morning, then that means that on July 5th, our next meeting, the sunrise and sunsets will be almost the same. And we've still got about 15 hours and 19 minutes of daylight. Then at least we're back into the slightly shorter days time of the year. Also in the interim till the next meeting, we've got the Earth reaching aphelion of 1.521 million kilometers from the sun, which occurs on July 6th. That's coming up as well. Now, those of us that are keen to look at the things that are dim at night, we need the sky as dark as we can get it. And what we wait for is the sun to finish its business and get truly deeply below the horizon for the sky to get truly dark. And that typically happens at the end of astronomical twilight, when the sun is greater than 18 degrees below the horizon. The sky is as dark as it's going to get sun-wise. And then after a period of hours, then the sun starts to rise again. And so we get a period of astronomical twilight in the pre-dawn sky as well. And again, the sad news is that at this time of the year, we're only getting 4 hours of that truly dark time that a lot of us need for imaging and dim objects. And that's going to be about the same a month from now. So we've got to get through this period before we can get past and get to those longer nights and shorter days. But can we observe at all? A lot of us have been grappling with this problem of forest fire, wildfire smoke that's been covering the sky and bringing significant amounts to it across southern Ontario and down into the eastern USA. This is actually a map of the airnow.gov fire and smoke map. You can see here the colored symbols represent the sort of sky quality or degree of smokiness in the sky. You can see here's where we are, this little blue dot that I'm circling with my mouse, kind of right in the thick of things. So we're getting this plume of smoke that's being transported right across southern Ontario and into the eastern seaboard of the US. So that's giving us a problem. Now, obviously, the smoke is going to severely reduce the transparency of the atmosphere. It's all but eliminating our views and hampering our imaging of anything that's faint, the deep sky objects like galaxies and nebulae. We might still be okay at times with the brightest open star clusters, brighter globular clusters. Bright double stars are a great target. They're no problem. We're going to still be able to see the moon, usually, of course. And most of the bright planets will be observable, but perhaps not some of their fainter aspects. So, you might not see as many details on the moon or on the planets, and you may not pick up as many of their moons as well. So the tip is to check the smoke forecast before you plan an observing session. Sure, the forecast may be for sunny skies, but that doesn't mean that you're going to be able to achieve what you're wanting to get to look at when you get out there. Now, you can find that fire and smoke map at this link I've got at the top here, fire.airgov.now. There's also a clear dark sky clock for the CAO in the second line. That's the link in the second line. And then the astrospheric.com or the Astrospheric app, which I'm showing here, also has smoke data. And I thought what I'd do is briefly just share you kind of a live look at astrospheric.com. And this is a tab that you can open up. So if I close this tab here, you can see there's a layers tab above the forecast. So each hour of the next several days is indicated by a colored square. The darker the blue, the better for astronomy. And you can see here we've got a mix of cloud and clear over the next few days. But we've also got the second row, which is transparency of the sky. And white means terrible. Gray and white mean terrible. We finally get a little bit of blue, perhaps on Thursday, Friday, that sort of a thing. So that's something to keep an eye out for. And again, if you go into this website, click on the layers and choose smoke, then that gives you your smoke map. And you can actually animate this. So it gives sort of a sense of how things are going to be going over the next little while. Now, we've got problems viewing the dim object in the night sky. We've also got limited darkness at night. So why not make lemonade out of it and focus on something else like a closer star instead of the distant stars? We've got solar cycle 25 are still building in strength. There are typically lots of sunspots that have been visible through white light filtered telescopes and eclipse glasses. And occasionally the Earth-directed corona mass ejections are producing aurora. And if you want to keep tabs on what's going on the sun, a great place to go is spaceweather.com. On the left-hand side of that page, you're going to see a little thumbnail showing the current sun. And this is when you click on that, it enlarges into an HMI image. And that's what this one is showing for this afternoon. And this active region, so the sunspots are given numbers, and we call them active regions. This number 3321 in the just below the equator of the sun here, I'm thinking that might be visible through eclipse glasses. So if anybody gets a chance to head out and take a look, please let us know if that worked for you. I might do that tomorrow if it's sunny. All right, what about the moon? We've still got the moon up in the sky. We've got the third quarter moon coming up on Saturday. So that usually triggers our dark sky period, and that's going to run until a day or two after the new moon on June 18th. We've also got, following that, the first quarter moon around June 26th, and then the full buck or thunder or hay moon will occur on July 3rd, and that's going to be only 34 hours before perigee, and that gives us the first of 3 supermoons for the summer months. Supermoons tend to come in groups of 2 or 3, and so this is the first of those. And of course, the best dark sky observing period will be the period after third quarter through a little bit after new moon. And then if you're interested in looking at the moon itself, then the period that you want is after new to about the full moon period. So what's up on the moon in the next little while? I mentioned that on June 22nd, that's when the young crescent moon will return to the western sky after sunset. You can take a look and see if you can see the earth shine phenomenon. That's the sunlight reflected off the earth and back onto the sun, back onto the moon. Around June 26th, the lunar straight wall will be illuminated next to the lunar terminator. And in that same night, if you head north on the moon, you can pick up the curved mountain ranges that accompany or surround the Mare Imbrium. Those are the Alps and the Apennine Mountains. And then as the moon gets a little bit fuller towards the end of the month, we can start picking up the Aristarchus Plateau. This is a fantastic piece of the moon to look at up close, especially on a night when the seeing is good. You've got this neat sinuous rill and the Cobra Head, Valles Schroederi and the Cobra Head. So that's a great piece of the moon to explore and enjoy. And then as the moon gets quite full towards the 1st to the 4th of July, we can start looking at things like the terraces on Copernicus, little dark haloed craters that accompany Copernicus, and a lot of the lunar ray systems. So that's a great thing to take a look for. If you're interested in getting lots of information about the moon, I recommend this resource of the NASA Dial a Moon page. You can request an image of the moon for any hour of any day of the year. This is the link here. And when you click on that image, then you can download a very high res, large size GIF of the moon with annotations on it. And there's even a version of it for an inverted view of the moon in case you want it at the eyepiece of a Newtonian telescope, something like that. All right, there's a comet up in the sky that some of us might want to chase down, Comet C/2023 E1 Atlas. It's currently observable in the northern sky, which makes it up for many hours of the night. It's currently around magnitude 10.5, but it is predicted to reach magnitude 9 in early July. Here's a picture that was taken a week or two ago, little green comet in the sky. It's going to be tracking. So this is NGC 4236 in Draco, and it's going to be tracking every night from tonight's meeting through next month's meeting in the direction of the Little Dipper's handle. And you can see that on the sort of 25th, 26th of the month, it's going to pass close to this naked eye star for Ursa Minoris, I should say, and maybe enable you to help pick up the comet on that night. In terms of the International Space Station, we actually don't have any this week, but we will begin to get some more in a few weeks from now, most of which will return in the evening around 11 p.m. And we'll get some pre-dawn passes resuming for the last week of June. Here's a few of them that I noted. Very, very bright, -3 passes. But these are all in the pre-dawn sky. So I'm not going to set the alarm for the space station, but somebody might want to. If you want to find when they're happening for where you are, you can always go to heavens-above.com and type in your location and get a list of them. And I also tabulate them for the GTA area in my astronomy skylights every week. Now, the moon is also on July 1st. The nearly full moon is going to occult the bright magnitude 3 star Alniot in Scorpius. It's actually the star that's just to the right or a little bit to the west of the bright star Antares. And it is a close little double star. So what will happen is that in the GTA, the dark limb of the moon will cover that pair of stars at 12:49 a.m. Eastern time. And then the star will reemerge from the bright opposite limb of the moon near the crater Vendelinus, which you can look up on a moon map to sort of get the coordinates. And that'll let you focus your telescope on the right section of the moon's limb by sort of referencing that quadrant of the moon. That'll reappear at 1:58 a.m. As shown here, and it really should take 1 or 2 seconds for each of the two stars to wink in sight. So it's going to be a neat event to look for, if you don't mind staying up a little bit late. A couple of occultations, asteroidal occultations. So on the 11th of June, so next Sunday morning at 3:30 in the morning, the asteroid Burnhamia, which is not Robert Burnham, it's another Burnham. It's going to occult a star, and there'll be a dip of 3.1 magnitudes for 3.5 seconds, and they'll be at an altitude or an elevation of about 28 degrees above the horizon. And you can see that the center line of the predicted track goes right almost through the CAO, certainly through north of Barrie and Orillia up through Minden, so cottage country. The blue lines represent the predicted path. The red lines represent sort of 1 sigma of error. And where this is in the sky is it's near the head of Pisces, the circlet of the constellation Pisces, Western Pisces. And that night, you're also going to have Neptune in the neighborhood, and the waning crescent moon will be in the same patch of sky. And then on July 1st at 1:54 a.m., we have another asteroidal occultation of the asteroid Alcatos, occulting a star. That'll be a dip of 5 magnitudes for 11.6 seconds. They'll be higher in the sky, about 69 degrees. You can see this track also goes through sort of that Barrie Lake Simcoe area, come down through Georgian Bay and head down towards Cobourg, Ontario, and then cross the lake and head down. And again, lots of rascals or Toronto Centre members will be in the path of these two events. So maybe somebody will get out there and take a look. Where that one is going to be right here in Aquarius. And you can see it's close to the globular cluster Messier 2. That sort of gives you a context to what patch of sky you're looking for. Now, as I mentioned, may have some impaired viewing of our dimmer objects, but so why not take a look at some double stars? And I've been working through the Astronomical League's binocular double star program, and there's some really neat gems in there and some little surprises that you can pick up on. And they're actually pretty good for also working on while twilight is deepening. So you don't have to wait till it's fully dark before you can start working on some of these. So I'll point out where some of these are in Stellarium here in a minute or two. But one of the great ones is Adaphora or Zeta Leonis. You've got a bright magnitude 3.4 and 5.9 pale yellow pair, widely split. So very easy to see in binoculars, but they'll also be great in a telescope. But the field is very, very cool. This is actually my background here. This is that same star. All kinds of little bright stars in the neighborhood that make it a really delightful look. Then you've got the star Cor Caroli, which is famous as a telescope double, but I've seen reports that people can split it in binoculars, so I'm curious to know if any of us are able to do that. It's a nice white and gold pair, nice contrast in brightness, 19.6 arc seconds apart, easily split in a telescope, but yeah, give it a go with your binoculars as well. And then not far from Cor Caroli, there's a neat trio, 15, 16, and 17 Canum Venaticorum. That's a trio of white stars, magnitudes between 5.9 and 7.1 or 1.5. And that's a little patch that's 13.5 arc minutes across. And then why not take a look at the 3 leaps of the Gazelle? And I'll just show you where those are. They're a big asterism in southern Ursa Major. So let me just pop in a Stellarium and come back here and show you where a few of these are. Stellarium's a little bit sluggish. So you've got Ursa Major, you've got the Big Dipper here, the Big Bear, and then the Big Bear's toes represent the 3 leaps of the Gazelle. A pair of stars about a degree apart, another pair about a degree apart, and another pair about a degree apart. These are each about 13 degrees apart, representing kind of the leaps of a gazelle or antelope through the grass. In terms of the double stars I mentioned, let's go look at a couple here. So Adaphora is the star at the back of the sickle of Leo. So above Algeba. Algeba is also a double star, but probably not binoculars. And then here's our Cor Caroli in Canis Venatici. It's one of the 2 stars in that constellation. And if I just zoom in a little bit here, you can see the trio of 15, 16, 17 CVN to take a look at as well. All right, let's go back and take a look at some of the planets. So we'll just go back to this evening sky. So we've still got Mars and Venus occupying the evening sky. Venus has recently finished the end of its elongation away from the sun, so it's going to be starting to start its return leg sunward now. At the same time, we've got Mars in the same vicinity. They're about a fist's width apart right now, but over the next number of evenings, you'll see that they're going to approach to within about 6 degrees or so, about your palm's width at arm's length. At the same time, they're both descending gradually sunward. So we're really only going to have Venus for another few weeks or a month or so before it gets a bit sort of tangled in the trees. In the other side of the sky, if you're staying up late, obviously tonight, that's where the moon's hanging out, but we've also got the planet Saturn, which is rising about 2 a.m. or so now. It's going to be accompanied by Jupiter. So there's Jupiter just peeking above the treetops here by about 4:30 in the morning. And they're going to be occupying the pre-dawn sky, post-midnight sky for quite some time to come. I think eventually, but in a month or so from now, towards the late into July, we're going to start seeing them rise before midnight. So they will return to our evening telescope viewing opportunity when we get deeper into the summer months. And then Mercury is lurking in here. There's Mercury. You may have just seen it. Where is its dot? Mercury is not easy to see at the moment. The ecliptic is very tilted over, but it is there. And Mercury is not alone. The planet Uranus is down there, tucked in close to it. And so that's not something that's going to be easy for us. If we've got viewers, though, that are tuning in from more tropical latitudes, if you live at a southerly latitude or even closer to the equator, then you've got a much better chance of seeing Mercury, where the ecliptic will be much more upright. Now, a couple of things that we can keep an eye out for in terms of what the moon is going to meet up with. We've got the moon meeting up with Saturn on June 9th and 10th. So that'll be a nice little pass if you're up at that time of the night. A couple of nights later, on the 14th of June, we've got a nice old crescent moon posing with Jupiter in the morning sky. And I'll just advance the date here a little bit. Get past our new moon period, and then we'll have the moon reappear in the western sky after sunset. And here's that kind of earth shine period I mentioned earlier on. Nice photo op coming up when we've got a trio of the moon, Mars, and Venus in the western sky on around the 21st and 22nd. And that's basically our good stuff for the moon for the month. Now, in terms of what you might want to look at in the dark of the moon, I'll just point out a few of my favorites in the sky. First up, we've got the Blade and Pearl, or the mini sombrero galaxy. This is a terrific little galaxy that's tucked in close to the northern foot of Virgo. Easy to find, don't need a lot of effort to find it. Just bring up the DSO imagery here. The stellarium's running a little slow. And I'll see if I can bring up the deep sky image for you here. There we go. So Stephen O'Meara, the famous American astronomer author, he akins this to the stellar core of the galaxy as a pearl balanced on the blade of the halo of the galaxy. So that's kind of where that comes from. Next up, we're going to hop up into Canis Venatici again. And remember, we've got our Cor Caroli and we've got our Chara, the other end of the stick. And if you aim your finder off the end of Chara, you can find the Cocoon Galaxy. Charles Ennis of RAS president let me know the other day that in South Africa, they call this the rhino and calf, this pair of objects. This is actually reported to be bright enough to see in 7 by 50 binoculars, really any size of a telescope if your sky is dark and not too smoky. But if you've got a bigger aperture telescope or you want to take an image, you can start looking for the stream of stars that have gravitationally deformed the end of the galaxy. And then at the other end, back up near Cor Caroli and that trio of stars that I mentioned for binoculars, we've got a nice little sort of 2-for-1 here of the water bug galaxy, NGC 5033, and Caldwell 29 or NGC 5005. These are also reported to be, the cores at least, are also reported to be bright enough for binoculars and really any size of a telescope. You know, they're not part of the Messier list, but they're actually definitely worthy of a look if you've sort of finished up with the Messiers and you want to take a look. And they actually will share the field of view of a low power eyepiece. And last up, let's head into the northern sky and go into Draco and head to the Cat's Eye Nebula. And the way you can find this one is look for these medium bright stars within the crook of the neck of Draco the Dragon. And if you've got an oxygen 3 filter, you can use that one to brighten up the planetary nebula. So this is NGC 6543. It's about 5,300 light years away. And what I think is fascinating about this one is that it's got this terrific internal structure to it. And that may be due to the fact that the star that expired to produce the planetary nebula was part of a binary system. And so that extra degree of rotation inside of it has produced this sort of internal complex inner shell. But something that you may not be aware is that there's an extensive outer envelope to this object, which would certainly be picked up in a long-term image, long exposure image, or perhaps with a very big scope under dark skies. In fact, one section of it is bright enough to have been designated its own IC catalog number, IC 4677. It was just a piece of the sort of brighter piece of that halo. So just kind of to summarize here, I'll just bring this up so everyone can see this. And here's to sort of a synopsis of what we can look for in the month. As I mentioned, view the sun with safely with filters. We've got our moonless periods. We've got, and also don't forget, you've got the lunar occultation towards the beginning of July, and expect that comet to brighten up as well. And that's it.
All right, so let's see if there are any questions. Let's begin in the room. So maybe give a chance to the guys online to submit their questions. We have a question here.
It's worth noting as a comment that right now the moon's tilt is a little more extreme than the ecliptic, which we could see when you showed like the full moon. It was well south of the ecliptic. So the next full moon and just before it, even if you wait until it's as high as it gets at whatever on the meridian, it will be remarkably low, lower than you would see in any other time.
Okay, thank you for that comment. Any other questions here, Dennis?
Actually, following up a little bit on Ed's comment there, I was just going to note that at the first quarter phase of the moon, when things are, when it's usually most interesting to look at the moon is extremely high this time of year. Like it's basically following the ecliptic, and it's at a very high phase, which means you would have pretty good chance of having good seeing. So it's a better than usual opportunity to do imaging and binocular viewing of the moon right now.
Yeah, I was going to say that, you know, in terms of making lemonade out of the smoke conditions and the late nights, I did a lot of the RASC Observe the Moon binoculars program and telescope program in dusk, in twilight. So that's a great, nice and high, good seeing conditions. Thanks, Dennis.